keeping with the theme of the last match, my platoon is once again in all E100s, and it turns out we've been pitted against an enemy team which also has 3 E100s. Now, they're not platooned, but they're not too bad. They've actually got some decent players there. Teams are about even, both have 2 arty, couple tank destroyers. It's not too badly matched up. Now, we're on Siegfried line, North Spawn, so my first sort of idea was to head down the sort of 7-8 lines onto that road that runs all the way through town, pops out the other side, and side scrape there, and see if I could find one of the enemy E100s, hopefully bait him into a side scraping match, because although the enemy E100s are actually decent players, some of their best, I don't expect them to be that good at side scraping. Most pubbies don't fully grasp the concept of side scraping, and I'll be not just demonstrating it but explaining it as I go in this video. Serb and Renzero head down my more usual path, down the diagonal road, and engage on that corner. 2 of the enemy E100s are already lit, 1 going to that corner, 2 on that corner, and the 3rd one the other end of the street I want to go on. Now, as you can see here, the initial position I took doesn't actually have a direct line of sight to the other end of the street, because the street does have a slight curve to it, and this tower, building, church, clock tower, whatever it's meant to be, is in the way. I think it's just a clock tower. So I move up to the next corner and side scrape out. I sit aimed, ready to pop anything that crosses into the open. I was kind of expecting the E100 to come out, but as it happens, the E50 gets lit too late for me to aim well, and my reaction shot misses, falls behind him. No loss. I pull in to make sure I'm up against my wall, and I make sure my turret is parallel with my hull. What this means is that my turret's side and hull side are angled so badly the enemy E100 will not pen with either heat or AP. It also means that the vulnerable face of my turret and my lower front plate are concealed by the wall in front of me. That's why I'm pressed so tightly up against it. Once he's taken his shot and bounced, I roll out to take my own. As it happens, there's an IS-8 there, so he eats the shell, and our own IS-8 moves in behind me and begins seriously fucking with my shit by blocking my side scrape. He pays for it dearly, taking a shot from the enemy E100, but now I know he's fired, I can roll out of cover and prepare my next shot. The key is to make sure that you don't get caught with your turret face pointing at the enemy when he's got a chance to aim. So you either want to be already pre-aimed for him to come out, or you want to force him to shoot first. Now, I do ask Serb to tell this IS-8 to fuck off, which he does, and to his credit, the IS-8 actually does go away once he's asked to. I didn't want to do it myself because I didn't want to be typing when this guy rolls around the corner. I can see something moving, it's an E5. This time my snapshot hits, knocks off a fair few hit points, so I get prepared for another side scrape, and I want to bounce the 100's next shot. Now, I'm not sure if he's going to be stupid enough to take one. In his position, if I saw this kind of target being presented, I wouldn't even bother firing my gun. There's just no point. You just sit and wait it out, see what happens, and hope your teammates distract him long enough for him to turn his turret away and show its side or roll out of cover. There's no point firing at a side scrape D100. Maybe if you fire HE, but even then it's just a waste of time. You should go away and engage something else. I pop out for a second, partially to respot him, partially to try and bait him into firing, but he's not that stupid, and so he does exactly what I would have done in his situation. He fucks off to go engage somebody else who is presenting a much juicier target. In the meantime, Serb has found himself in a very unpleasant situation, hemmed in by E100s. I take a shot at the first one I see. I am getting pushed by this E5, so I'm a bit worried about that, but the JP's got my back and blows the shit out of the E5 before it can even get a shot off. I roll back out. Now at this point I'm not even bothering to side scrape because the enemy E100s are really pushing on my platoon mates. Serb just went down, unfortunately, while he's on reload. And also at this point I'm not too worried. I'm happy to throw away 700 odd hit points if it means finishing off the enemy E100s while they're vulnerable, and they are very, very vulnerable. This guy has his side to me, doesn't even seem to realize I'm there. and I'm able to put a shot through his turret. Now, of course, I aimed in front of the truck because heat shells will be eaten by trucks, cars, telephone boxes, any kind of debris at all. They are a chemical round, they fuse on contact. You cannot fire heat shells through obstacles, you have to hit the tank you're aiming at, same as HE. AP and APCR are of course kinetic rounds, you can fire them through whatever you damn well please. The enemy are now down to 1E100, who turtles up as hard as he possibly can on the other side of town. Meanwhile, I see an opportunity at this T95. If he rolls forwards along this street, I should just have enough height in my tank to shoot over the rubble pile and hit him in the back. I do make a mistake driving that far forwards. I expose my lower plate to a position that they had a T30 in. Thankfully he wasn't paying attention. And pop. There goes the T95. And he burns for a couple of fire ticks before he finally finds his fire extinguisher. I dare say he didn't expect that one. We seem to have a handle on the town, but the enemy are pushing through the field with their mediums. Our arty is woefully exposed because our own mediums are sitting on the ridgeline there. Now, normally field does end up being pretty much irrelevant, but it is worth keeping an eye on it just to try and prevent them from getting into your arty like this. And I don't know if you noticed there, but I hesitated when I saw that T30. Big mistake. I'm lucky I wasn't hit while backing up, but I do realise that I need to get as close to him as possible to force him around the corner. And so I push on. I was a little worried about the IS-8 on my right side, but as it happens he wasn't too brave and didn't really come around the corner and push me. Meanwhile, our team works on finishing off the last E100, who has really just dug himself in as hard as he can. IS-8's so low on health, I'm not too worried about him, but I do have a full health T30 here. He does get a shot into me, but I get one into him, and at this point I'm beginning to wonder, can I race his reload? So I do go to push around the corner. I figure he'll reload about the same time as me, maybe slightly after. Unfortunately, I take a shell from the 212. I low roll the T30, and he's able to finish me off. Now, of course, I would have finished him if it wasn't for the arty shell, or perhaps if I'd high rolled, but it doesn't matter. He goes down anyway to the Batchat, who also cleans up the IS-8, and now it's just the E100 left in town, and the T54 and T62 in field. Now, T62's game crashed, apparently, so this might have been even closer had he not crashed. But in the case it's actually happening, our T54 is able to solo the enemy T54, and now moves towards the T62's last spotted position, right as the T54 gives it away. Now, Ren Zero is in a dilemma here. He's fighting an enemy 100 who has the big gun. Ren Zero still has the 128. He has more hit points than Ren Zero, and Ren Zero is getting pummeled by the enemy arty. He's totally exposed with no cover. Meanwhile, the enemy 100 is well screened from our own arty, and our own Batchat is running away instead of engaging while Ren Zero has the E100's attention. This is going to haunt him quite badly. If we just watch what the Batchat does here, this is some really bad Batchat play. Don't do this. So not only does he wait until the E100's pre-aimed in his direction, he doesn't aim his shots. He's so busy driving around that he doesn't think to simply track the E100 and pound shells through its lower plate. He was actually aiming at its upper plate there. And again, he hits a weld seam. He's lucky he got 0 damage tracked there. That shot, by all rights, should have killed him, and he would have deserved it. I don't know how this guy has stats like that if he plays the Batchat so poorly, but that's a shining example of how not to play an autoloader. You cannot afford to drive around back and forth like a puppy and throw your aim. You have to aim. Autoloaders are really the only exception to the rule where you don't want to sit in the open firing shell after shell. In an autoloader, because you're all about burst damage, you have to sit, aim, dump your clip, and then run away. You can't drive around firing like an idiot, especially in the Batchat, which has some horrendous gun handling. However, the E100 did lose at least some hit points from that, and Ren Zero is now once again on top of the hit point battle. We also have the T54 flanking wide around, who should be able to get shots into the E100 from a relative safety back here. Sure enough, he stops to take some shots. Looks like that one didn't have any effect, but he's spotted the arty, and the Batchat now decides to actually push in while Ren's supporting. The arty does finish the Batchat because he was sitting still in the open. Again, terrible Batchat play from that guy. But our T-54 avenges him, and now Ren and the Conch GC both push on the E100 with support from the T-54. Conch GC gets a kill with a finishing shotgun, and now all that's left is the enemy 261, who's quite bad. He's probably down in K1. It's usually where the enemy arty will run to when they want to be a spiteful little shit and draw the game out for longer than they need to. If he was trying to win, he would be set up somewhere to defend his base or try and ambush one of these guys, maybe with a shotgun, but he's not even going to bother. He's just going to go hide in a corner. So Ren Zero manages to survive and carry the game through with some help from our teammates, and that worked out to be a pretty decent E100 match for me, 6,500 damage. And if I recall correctly, I think... no, sorry, it wasn't this one. I'm trying to think of which match I picked up one of my missions in. It wasn't this one because I was still doing the cap mission, that's right. But one of these, I actually picked up the tanking damage mission. I think it's HT12 in the E100, which I really wasn't expecting. I thought I'd have to use a tier 5 or 6 heavy for that mission, but I got it in the E100, which I was pretty impressed by. I think it's like tank double your hit points or something and do 2,000 damage. It's kind of like, actually it's a harder version of Heavy Tank 15 because it specifically stipulates double your hit points, whereas Heavy Tank 15 you can cheese it a bit, you know, bounce like 2,000 damage and then deal 6,000. But we picked up a nice win from that, and I think it was a pretty deserved one. The enemy E100s did put some effort in, they did do quite well for a while, but eventually they were just outplayed by us. They pushed into a pincer. You've got to be really careful with the E100 when you do push into the open. You've got to time it well. The timing they took was not optimal. I was still alive and still in a position to shoot them in the side. I had nothing on my flank, so I could quite confidently push on them. Well, there was the E5, but he got dealt with quite violently by the JPE. And so you've really got to be paying attention to what's able to shoot you in the sides, particularly when you're in an E100 on E100 fight. You lose hit points very quickly. And people tend not to think about that because they're so used to bouncing shells from smaller tanks. Suddenly something that's got the same armor and gun as you comes bucketing around the corner and puts a shot into your side. You're going to really be missing those hit points. Hope you enjoyed the video. There's plenty more E100 to come, don't you worry about that. Including, finally, the Heavy Tank Cap-Out mission, I think Heavy Tank 7 or Heavy Tank 8. So there was that. And in this session I was able to pick up the remainder of my Heavy Tank missions, so I was pretty chuffed with myself by the time I quit playing. As ever, I wish you the best of luck in the field, and I'll catch you on the next video.